Today I'm taking a look at Pentax. In this case, starting with the entry-level stuff. You like having that optical viewfinder, you like having weather resistance, pretty rugged camera most likely. You can check these out and see what's available. In this case, Pentax has been shrinking a little bit in what they offer. The K3 Mark III, which is a pretty expensive APS-C camera, but it has the largest optical viewfinder in an APS-C camera ever. As far as I know, they have the KF and the K70. The main ones we'll be checking out. They do have a full frame camera, the K1 or K1 Mark II. You can check that out as well if you're interested. So 5 reasons to consider Pentax. The first reason is complete dust proof and weather resistant construction. The second one is mount compatibility. For using superb older lenses, the K mount has been going for a long time. They've used the same mount. You can actually buy a little adapter for the K mount to use M42 screw mount lenses, which I had back in the day. I've used Pentax many years ago. Number 3, a compact lightweight design with built-in shake reduction. I mean, it is a DSLR, so compact and lightweight for that style of camera at the very least. Number 4, totally focused on image and product design with all SLR models. Okay. Number 5 is user interface design for superb usability. I did use the K7 and K5, those are quite a while back. They had a very nice layout and design for cameras of that era. If you're unfamiliar with digital SLRs, basically means digital single lens reflex camera. It's a mix of mechanical and electronic technologies together. Here's an actual camera split in half. So you got your lens, you have the mirror, which actually moves. That's what you hear when you click. You hear that clap of the mirror, and then you hear the shutter make a noise, most likely. And then down in this area is where the autofocus sensor is. So some of the light goes down into here, other light goes up here to the pentaprism. Very cool. This stuff back here is the sensor, shake reduction mechanism, screen. I don't know what camera this is, but basically same for Pentax. Pentax has stated that they want to continue with SLRs. I guess it's their thing. So they'll probably be the last digital SLR company. We'll see if they outlast Nikon and Canon. So those 3 are the ones still selling that style of camera. On B&H, it has the K70 for $650 without a lens. Considering how much mirrorless cameras go for these days, is basically around the same price. You might be able to get some cameras cheaper, some might be more expensive depending on feature set and such, but you'll need to get a lens with it, and that's going to increase the price. Here's a kit with a 35mm f2.4 lens, so it's a prime lens. That's actually a nice little combination there. You're not going to be able to zoom or anything like that, but $764. Honestly, it seems a little expensive, but you are getting a type of camera that is becoming more rare these days new. So if you do want to go with that, it's at the very least a consideration. So the K70 is basically like this KF, but the KF is a slightly revised version of it. As far as I can tell, they're pretty much the same physical camera. I think this has a newer LCD screen, maybe a few other features here and there that are different. It's going to be quite a bit more expensive. You'll have to look into the fine details here and see if it's worth it for you. One note that they do mention on B&H here is the OGPS 2, and then this one is OGPS 1. That is an accessory that goes into the hot shoe of the camera. If you're into astrophotography, you can use that accessory with the camera, and then it uses the shake reduction mechanism in there to help you get longer exposures without star trails, without blur of stars. So it's a very cool, unique feature that's only on Pentax. So if you want to use the newer accessory, you're going to have to go with the newer, more expensive camera in that case. I never used it, but it's a cool bit of technology. I had a Pentax K5, which was capable of using the older one. Looking at $950 with a lens. Pretty expensive in my opinion for what you're getting. Does 1080p video. It looks like it has a pretty standard 11-point autofocus system for Pentax. I was using cameras in Pentax in around 2011. Those like on the tail end of when I used Pentax, and they had an 11-point autofocus system. I'm sure it's improved, but yeah, they didn't change it too much, it seems like. So that's pretty much it on the cheaper end of things. You're going to have to go up to nearly $1,700 for the K3 Mark III, just the body. That's a pricey camera, but it is basically the highest technology, optical quality of the viewfinder in a digital SLR APS-C camera. With Pentax, it might be a good idea to go used. In that case, another one of my affiliates, KH, sells used cameras, and they offer a warranty with anything of a certain condition or higher. I think it's bargain or higher. You'll be able to get that 6-month warranty. So in this case, they currently have quite a few cameras in Pentax. Got the KX, which is relatively old, but If you just want to get into the system, maybe you have a few old came-out lenses you want to try out, this could be a potential option for you. K10D, I actually had this camera, $150. The thing is, you need to really consider autofocus and stuff like that because it's not going to be amazing. I did struggle at times with autofocus on the K10D, going up to something like a K30. That's basically the same price. You'll get better autofocus, better functionality out of a camera. Let's see what rating this is. Okay, it's EX Plus. I would definitely go with the K30 compared to the K10D. Yeah, so if you jump up even further, K7, I had that camera. It was decent. Autofocus wasn't the most amazing thing ever. It's actually an older camera than this K30. This was one of my favorite cameras in general, although it's kind of nostalgia at this point. I haven't used it in a long time. Going back to it would probably be a little bit of a shock. It was and is still one of my favorite cameras. The K3 Mark III or this KP might be a better option in general. Obviously, it's not the cheapest thing ever, $620, $670 for a used camera, but they might be better specced in general compared to that K70. You'll have to check things out and see if it's worth getting a used camera with maybe more features. Pretty sure this has 2 card slots. So this is basically like the K7, K5 series upgraded. And then of course you can consider full frame here, the K1, the K1 Mark II. Now let's check out the lenses available currently for Pentax, sorting by price. The DA 50mm f1.8 this is an APS-C specific lens, so if you do go full frame, this is going to be a bad option. But for APS-C cameras, which is the main ones we're talking about, very reasonably priced, probably decent quality, of course all plastic and everything, but probably not going to matter. Very lightweight, small, compact lens, so you can check that out. Obviously 50mm an APS-C camera is going to give you more of a portrait lens with the field of view than anything else. We jump up to the 35 f2.4. This is again another APS-C lens, $120. So it seems like a pretty reasonable price. So this is also a full plastic lens, but I think this would be a better option than the 50 just for a normal field of view. Unless you want both, just get both and get your portrait stuff, get your normal everyday photography with that one. And then here's the standard kit lens. This one is weather resistant with the WR marking on it. If you want this lens, get it in a kit if possible, because I wouldn't pay that price for it, but it is a standard kit lens, 18 to 55, and then the apertures are not amazing. f3.5 at 18, 5.6 at 55, pretty standard kit lens. So this is a unique one. If you want to deal with the thickness of a DSLR, certain bags or something, and the thickness matters, you could get this 40 f2.8 because it's very, very thin and it kind of offsets the thickness of a K-mount camera. So I actually had this lens for a while with the K1. The K1 was their one single mirrorless camera. It was uniquely designed by this Mark Newson guy. Here are all my videos for Pentax through the original years of my channel. You can see quite a few videos. They're not the best quality in general. Not to say that my current stuff is amazing. My original video on the channel is about Pentax with the K10D. So that lens was part of the K1 kit, but apparently they're just still selling it as is, new. Optical quality was decent. 40 isn't amazing on an APS-C camera, but you could at least check it out considering the pen cake nature of the lens. Very thin. Here we jump up to a specialty lens, a 50 f2.8 macro. If you want one-to-one macro, that's going to be a decent-ish option for you. As far as I know, all these lenses up to the point of this one here is their screw drive autofocus. So they're going to be relatively loud when they're focusing, make like a zoop, 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 zoop sound. Look for lenses that have motors inside the lens if you want to have a quieter experience. This one has a pulse autofocus motor inside the lens, should be quieter. Keep going down the line. Looks like there is only Pentax now. There used to be third parties offering autofocus lenses in the system, but it's shrunk down in user base quite a bit. Obviously you can buy used lenses. There's going to be a ton of stuff available that should work pretty well because it's always been K-mount. There might be some quirky lenses though. Interesting fisheye lens. I did have a version of this, older version. If you want that really wide field of view with distortion, you could check something like this out. Price isn't terrible for what it is. So I'd say go with the 35 for sure. If you want a prime lens with a decent aperture. f2.4 isn't amazing, but it's definitely better than the kit lens. 40 is cool if you want a really thin option. If you want macro, Obviously the 50 2.8 is going to be a nice option for you. I'd probably skip this DA 55 to 300 f4 to 5.8 and then go down all the way to this 55 to 300 f4.5 to 6.3 with the motor inside the lens. It's going to be a much better experience for you with telephoto. Obviously the apertures aren't great, but should be better at the very least. Here's another 40, but this case they call it limited, which is higher quality materials. You can have some metal in there, but obviously the price is going to be more. Basically the same lens as the cheaper one, the XS version. It's another limited 35 2.8 macro. I mean, considering it's a metal lens, the price isn't terrible. 28 to 105. You could potentially consider this, but I think it'd be better for the full frame K1. Here we get into more of Pentax's unique full frame metal lenses. I used to have the 31 millimeter f1.8 and one or two others, but these are screw drive autofocus, so they're going to be pretty loud in use. So here's one option for APS-C cameras, 18 to 135. It's basically a lens to do everything. If you're going traveling, looking for just a simple lens in conditions that aren't great, like it's raining, there's a bunch of dust around, you're going to the sand dunes or something, maybe consider a lens like this because you won't have to change it out to get what you need. So at the very least, that's an option in certain situations. Obviously, when a lens covers a really long focal length range, it's not going to be as high quality most likely compared to prime lenses. I did have this lens, a version of it, the FA macro 100mm. I'd probably go with the 50, but the 100 is nice too to get a little bit more working distance. But it's a specialty lens, and you could potentially get other options that are more useful in different situations. This lens is basically more so good for full frame, 20 to 40mm, 35 2.8 macro. Probably not get this one though. I go with a longer focal length for macro. 21mm f3.2 could potentially be a nice option for APS-C. So 16 to 85, 3.5 to 5.6. That could be a nice walk around lens for APS-C cameras. Around $500, not too bad. Does have the focus motor in the lens, so it should be quieter. Nice kit option for the camera. It also has weather resistance. Yeah, that's basically all I'm going to cover here. I did have this 55 f1.4 SDM lens. Pretty decent. Autofocus wasn't the fastest or anything like that, and it's not the cheapest lens by far. Could be a potential portrait option for APS-C Pentax cameras. I also had this 31mm f1.8. Thing to take note of with these lenses, it was two pieces basically. This top portion and this bottom portion. There was some wobbling and stuff on the 31 that I had. It was okay, but it didn't exude high quality in that aspect besides having the metal exterior. This is a nice option for APS-C or full frame cameras, the 70 to 210 f4 SDM weather resistant lens. So if you want some range, you want a little bit faster apertures through the range, looks okay. The price honestly isn't bad considering this specific range of lens throughout the different manufacturers has gotten more and more expensive. So if you want that type of lens for sports or something, this could be a nice option for you. Here's a Sigma lens. They still sell Pentax, it looks like. So 35 1.4 HSM Art for Pentax K. Very expensive, but if you want f1.4 at 35, nice walk around field of view, you could check that out. So that's pretty much it for anything moderately priced. We're already getting into it like $1,100. Obviously some of these would be very nice on K70 cameras like that, the KF, but pretty expensive and more expensive than the camera. Here's a quick little look at sizes with the cameras. This website is great for getting an idea of if a camera is large or small in comparison to other options. Here's a Sony a6000, and this is the K70. You can see it's much thicker than the mirrorless camera. That's what happens when you remove the mirror and all that other mechanical stuff from there. So that's one consideration. If you don't care, it doesn't matter in that case, but they did make it relatively compact for what they could do with dealing with the K-mount, but at least consider it's going to be larger on average than some mirrorless cameras these days. Scrolling through used Pentax lenses, we have old kit lenses that will be fine. This is actually a relatively new kit lens, the DA-AL weather resistant. This is a film era 28 to 80 kit lens, so that would work probably just fine on the K70, but of course the focal length isn't amazing. If you're curious about Pentax, wanted to get a digital SLR specifically, I think they are an interesting option at this point. Obviously, if you don't care about SLR technology, go with a mirrorless camera. I'd suggest that mostly, but yeah, Pentax still around, still an option, still offering new equipment. Their lens prices look pretty decent for new stuff, but obviously you can get used as well. Anyways, hope you found this video helpful. Scott Photography Banzai, thanks.